Hey everybody, it's Ashley. In today's video, we are going to be throwing together some freezer meals for the next week. And if you've seen some of my past freezer meal videos, it's just sort of been to keep and have around. Today, we have a specific purpose for that. And I'll talk about that in a future video about why I've changed the way that I do some of my freezer meals. But this is going to be such a great resource for us for the next week. One of the huge reasons why I want to get these freezer meals made today is because for the next week, we're going to be not at home. Well, part of us will not be at home. When I get into the recipes, it's actually gonna go really quick. So I'm just gonna tell you a few things that you'll see in the video. First is gonna be storage containers. If you've seen some of my past freezer meal videos, you know that I don't like to put things in plastic, but we are gonna be using some plastic bags today. And the reason for that is ease in a big way. Some of these recipes can go into a glass container just fine, but there's a couple of them that I'm gonna put and a couple of other side sort of ingredients I'm gonna be putting in freezer bags. Everything we can put in glass or jars, which is glass, we will, but you'll see some of that. I am making full recipes like I would if we're just having our dinner. And because not all of us are going to be leaving town, we're gonna be splitting them up. So if you see me splitting things into 2 different containers or something like that, that's what that's all about. And so it'll feed both the people away and the people that are staying. Right, let's just go ahead and get right to the recipes. First, we're getting this chili going. I'm gonna do this fully cooked. Some of the meals will not be fully cooked, but this one will be, so we're gonna get it started. I soaked some beans last night. Otherwise, everything else is just done today. Ground some meat, put some onions in there, added some sweet potatoes, not a lot, but just enough to add some more veggies and some sweetness. Got it good and seasoned, homemade broth, and we're just gonna let this go while we get things. Now that we have our chili going, we're gonna get the tandoori chicken next. I have 8 chicken thighs in here. We're gonna add olive oil and lemon juice. I just combine those two. Some seasonings. This is curry powder, garlic powder, because I didn't use fresh garlic, some paprika, salt, curry powder, if I didn't mention that, and then some fresh ginger, and then 3/4 cup of yogurt. Now this recipe came from the Freezer Meals 101 gals who are so sweet. And so I'm just gonna go ahead and mush this together and this recipe will be done. So for this next one, I'm going to do a curry, and because some of our crew is not going to be out of town, I'm actually gonna make 2 so that there's some for everyone. I first put in some red pepper and we're putting in some carrots. I have some cauliflower that is not yet here, but I will be adding that as well. And then for seasonings, I'm going to, well, I prefer cooked onions when I do this kind of stuff because sometimes I think that if you put raw onions in freezer meals, sometimes they just don't always get cooked the way that I would like them to be cooked. So I just sauteed up those. Those are nice and kind of caramelized. I'm gonna add a little garlic powder. I never measure this stuff. And by little, I really mean a lot. Onion powder as well. A little salt. Can always add more when we're eating. A little pepper. And some soy sauce. And again, you can always add that when you're eating. And then I have a can of this for each batch. I'm not gonna put that in, I'm just gonna leave it on the shelf or take it with in the case of the one going on the road. I'm going to add just about a 1/2 cup of homemade broth. Normally I like to leave my liquid out. I like to keep freezer meals pretty minimal on the liquid just because there's less than touching the bags. But I'm going to add maybe just a little bit more here. And we're gonna be actually cooking the chicken for this. I had to take another freezer meal out of the freezer and I'm gonna have to cook this up in a little bit and then we'll just add that already cooked. So then all that really needs to be done is the vegetables need to be cooked. We're gonna add some cauliflower. We're gonna split a head between each of these 2 bags, use that chicken and then get some of this in here. I need to scrape out the bottom and then open a new one, and then this will be all seasoned. The next thing we're doing is just getting some rice going. I am adding a little bit of olive oil to it because it'll keep the rice kind of nice and separated once it's in the freezer, or rather once it thaws. if we have the olive oil in there, it'll make it break up a lot easier. So I actually have 5 cups of rice in here. Normally we just cook a couple at a time. So 5 cups of rice, and we're just gonna thoroughly cook this. It'll be both for the curry as well as the other chicken that we made. Now we are getting our ground beef stroganoff going. We're going to do 2 pounds of meat. This is about 24 ounces of mushrooms and 1.5 large onions. I'm leaving the meat more in the middle so it can cook thoroughly under the burner, and then I will pull the mushrooms sort of in the middle once most of the meat is fully browned. Like a lot of my recipes, I don't really measure. I'm making my stroganoff mainly the way we always do, and then just freezing it fully cooked. We will eat this over some mashed potatoes that we're gonna make in a minute here. I season it with Worcestershire sauce, soy sauce, onion and garlic powder, salt and pepper, and then later I will add in some of that homemade broth in addition to sour cream, and then taste it and add additional seasonings of whatever it needs. Next, we are going to make meatloaf. We're going to have half of this for dinner tonight, and the rest will be frozen for the trip. In addition to 3 pounds of ground beef, I added in eggs, herbs, salt and pepper, Worcestershire sauce, in addition to some gluten-free breadcrumbs. I even threw some Parmesan cheese in there. I'm not sure why I thought that I would do that today, but I did. Oh, and a little bit of ketchup, but you could use tomato sauce too. After a good mix, I'm going to form these into patties and bake them on a large baking sheet all at once. After about 45 minutes, I'm going to top them just with a little bit more mustard and ketchup mixture. You can use chili sauce, which happens to have less sugar than ketchup. We use a low sugar ketchup to begin with. And like I said, with the tomato sauce in the actual recipe, you can use that for the topping as well. And that usually doesn't have any added sugar, and it's actually really, really good that way. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these in a 350-degree oven. We have a huge pot of potatoes going. This is actually 10 pounds of russet potatoes, which are my personal favorite type of potato. This will be enough for 4 dinners tonight, and then also 3 of the freezer meals. This chili is cooling off really nicely, as is the stroganoff and the rice. I have the cauliflower in the curry bags, but the chicken is still thawing. We have a big mess going, but we are not done yet. We're making cornbread to go with the chili. I love this recipe and been using it for about 19 years. We will do both 12 muffins and then an 8x8 pan. The cornbread is not too sweet. We like a little sweetness in our cornbread. It's got almost half parts of cornmeal to a flour. We use an all-purpose gluten-free baking mix. And if it's too crumbly and you're using a gluten-free mix, you just add more egg, and I find that it really helps and takes care of any kind of crumbliness whatsoever. The meals are to the point where they are cooled down enough to be transferred to the storage containers. They will continue to cool down for a while though, before I put them in the freezer itself. I really want them to be almost refrigerator temperature before freezing. And it's a good thing it's a pretty cool day outside, because I can actually use our back porch, which is pretty convenient, especially with how small our kitchen is. I was able to get 4 quarts of chili plus a dash extra, 2 of our glass storage containers of the stroganoff, in addition to a quart. The storage containers themselves are about 34 ounces, so slightly larger than the jars. The chicken is finally cooking. So once that is done, cooled, I will cut it up and then add it to the curry, and that will go straight into the freezer. The last meal I only have a small amount of footage of, and it didn't require any cooking yet on my part. I assembled sandwiches to be grilled, and they will go along with a roasted red pepper tomato soup that is pre-made. I went simple with just cheddar cheese and some turkey. One thing I have done before, which worked really amazing, is to add a little butter to the outside of the bread pieces so they're literally ready to go right onto the grill or pan. I placed little pieces of parchment paper in between each one so they don't stick at all, and it works really great. So all in all, we have our chili with cornbread, stroganoff over mashed potatoes, chicken and vegetable curry with rice, grilled sandwiches with tomato soup, meatloaf with mashed potatoes, and chicken tandoori with rice. This will have all of our bases covered for dinner. Anything else that we have on hand for dinner will just be added an extra. I feel like we have a really good coverage of our macronutrients, which is always good to make us feel really well balanced. I'm so glad to have the rice and potatoes done too, so there's literally none of that extra stuff that needs to be done every single day, it will make our time away from the house so much smoother. If you have done meals like this before leaving town, let me know in the comments. Thank you for being here. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we will see you soon.